Hi, I'm Doug Bryant, designer of Dunkirk, France 1940 from Worthington Publishing. In this video, what I'm going to do is a playthrough of the first two turns of a game. I'm going to play this solitaire, play both sides, and I'm going to shoot from this wide angle rather than, move the board around each time and do a bunch of video editing. I'm just going to do it in one shot here from the German side of the board. And hopefully be able to get a sense of kind of what's going on, what we're reviewing here. I'm going to go through the processes of the game, the mechanics, how you use some cards, how battles conducted, so on and so forth. And hopefully this will be helpful for everyone to increase your enjoyment of the game. Now, what I've done here is I've gone ahead and I've done the setup for both sides, and I've placed the forces in their respective setup areas. The German Group A in its area, B in its area. The Dutch, 1 block per city. The Belgians, 1 block per city, and of course in the fortress Evenemel. The Allied forces in their setup areas, and just a couple tips about setup. The forces have multiple hexes for their setup. For example, the BEF back here has 3 hexes in which they can set up their 4 blocks. At initial setup, not every one of the setup hexes has to be occupied. It gives the players options. I could have, for example, put the BEF like this. I could have put them like that. I could have done a number of things, and I just chose them doing that way. One thing to keep in mind when you do your setup is make sure that your headquarters block is in such a position that all of the blocks in the formation are in command. Now, as you'll recall, the neutrals are always in command. They can never leave their country. They're always in command when their command chit is pulled out of the opaque container. But for the other forces, make sure they're in command. And let's just take here a look like the 9th, for example. The 9th has 4 blocks here in these 3 areas. I could have done something like this. I could have mixed them around different places. The headquarters I placed over here. The Allies, as you recall, have a command range of 2 on their headquarters. In other words, the headquarters in which the headquarters sits, plus 2 hexes out. The Germans, their command range slightly better is 3. And the reason for that, the Germans have better command control. But also they have more blocks in their formations. They kind of need that additional reach for the headquarters blocks. But here in the case of the 9th, for example, I put 2 of them here, I put 1 here, and this little cul-de-sac here in front of the river is never really a good defensive position, but it's a hole that needs plugged. Somebody has to plug it, so this little 2-step block, he's been nominated. So we thank him for his service. We'll have to see what happens to him. But again, every block is in command at the start based on where you put your headquarters, so make sure you don't inadvertently put a block out of command. One thing with the Germans, these setup areas are just setup areas, and they are not transitable, if that's a word, by the other group. For example, Army Group B cannot come into A setup area and then enter play, or vice versa. I had a player one time ask me, well, couldn't A move into the field of play kind of like a lead blocker and then let's send B in behind them like the half? No, you can't do that. The idea is there. It's a holding area. They are to move forward into the field of play. Interestingly as well, something to keep in mind, and we're going to talk about Supreme Headquarters. I have the Supreme blocks here. I'll talk about those as I go through. One of the Supreme functions is something called strategic movement. Strategic movement cannot be used with German blocks when they're sitting here in the setup areas. You can't kind of sling them forward like I'm going to sling this guy forward 4 spaces out of the setup area. That's almost like they're kind of being catapulted off the deck of an aircraft carrier. That's not the intention. It's a little bit unbalancing to do that. A block has to have at least been in the normal field of play before it can be moved strategically. Keep in mind also when you're the Allies, just another note on strategic movement, the BEF blocks can never be moved by strategic movement. It kind of simulates a little French and British friction, command friction there, if you will. So I have everything set up. I've dealt with the cards. I've looked at these. I've looked at the Allied cards. I've seen the German cards. And what would happen is when you have the game, when you get set up, you're going to do that. You're going to deal out your cards, and the German player can look at the cards ahead of time and kind of see what they have in their hand, what's available, and then they're going to go and they're going to select one of the strategy cards. And there's 6 German strategy cards, and this kind of really drives the game because the German's going to pick one of these, and on each card is listed various victory conditions. So the German's going to pick one, keep it secret from the Allied player throughout play. And you put the others face down, where the Allied player is not going to be able to see them. So you're going to keep all this hidden. So let's just sort through. What should we pick here for the demo? Okay, let's try this one. This is always a good one here. Strategy card D, divide and conquer. Now on the strategy cards, there's 6 of them, as I say. They have 3 main routes, if you will. One is up towards the coast, one is down the middle, one is towards Paris. And each of those routes has 2 strategy cards that are variants. and kind of like an A and a B, 1 and a 2, if you will. One of them might focus a little more, tiny bit more on possession of geographic objectives, and a little less on destruction of forces, and the other flavor would be a little more on destruction of forces and, a little less on control of territory. I mean, those items are in all the cards. They all have the requirement to destroy forces and to conquer geographic objectives. Just the emphasis is slightly different on each one. So let's see what D tells us. Divide and conquer. This German strategy attempts to split the area of operations along a Charleroi-Arras-Amiens axis, placing maximum emphasis on the destruction of Allied forces. Now, the way the cards are laid out, strategy cards, there's a list of main objectives, and these will total 11 possible victory points. And then there's going to be on every card 3 bonus objectives, each worth 1 point. So the German has a maximum of 14 possible victory points that can be earned during the game. Now, how do they win? They have to get 10. They have to have 10 by the end of the game, at the end of the last turn. 10 victory points are needed. So let's just look at some of what we're trying to do here. Control Arras or Amiens at game end is 3 VPs. No doubling if we get both. We just get 3 if we control one or the other. If we get both, we'll see if that's a bonus later, but it's just 3 there. Control Charleroi is worth 2. Shatter the BEF or the French Ninth Army. The BEF is here, the Ninth is here. Shattering a formation in Dunkirk, France 1940, means you've eliminated 3 or more of the formation's blocks by the end of the game. So if we can eliminate 3 or more BEF blocks or 3 or more blocks of the French Ninth Army by the end of the game, we'd receive 2 victory points. Again, no bonus if we get both of those. Eliminate 5 or more French blocks in total. So we're looking to accumulate basically a dead pile of French blocks. And that would give us 2 victory points if we can get 5 or more. Shatter the French First Army, one of their stronger formations, starts in here next to the BEF. That is worth 2 victory points as well. Our bonus objectives, if we would control Lille, a city back in this way, we'd get a bonus point. If we do get both Arras and Amiens at game end, we get another bonus point. And if we eliminate all the Belgian blocks, we get a bonus point. It doesn't say we have to capture all the Belgian cities, just if we can eliminate all their fighting forces. That would also get us a VP. So that's the 14 possible. Now on every card, every German strategy card, there are deductions that can take place. And one deduction that is consistent on all the cards is that for every 2 German blocks out of play at the end of the game, it's -1 victory point. Every 2 German blocks, -1 VP. Player one time asked me, well, Doug, what about 3? Do you round up? No, you don't. It's every 2. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. That every 2 costs you a victory point. On 3 of the 6 strategy cards, both of the coastal strategy cards and one of the 2 down the middle, and it looks like it just happens to be the one we picked, that you also have the potential to lose points for a BEF evacuation. There is a Dynamo event in the Allied player deck in which they can evacuate the BEF from play, and depending on how many steps they're able to evacuate, that reduces points from the German total to a maximum of 2 points there, if they can pull them out. And I don't know if I have the Dynamo card here. I'll see if we get that. So that's a case where that's an option, but if the Allied player pulls the BEF out, they're a pretty nice formation. They don't have them to use. So again, that can't take place until turn 4. But should it occur, this strategy card would be impacted by that. Now, one thing I want to say, just a tip for you, if you're playing the German side, I've designed the game to be challenging for the Germans to win, and historically, it was a cakewalk in many ways for the Germans, but there were some very close moments in the campaign where things could have gone either way. In terms of a game, I've made it challenging for the Germans to win. The Germans, even in this game, are going to very likely win the campaign overall, but the point is, can they achieve their 10 victory points? And a piece of advice for them is to stay very laser-like focused on the objectives here, because it's very easy sometimes, especially during the first 2 turns, for the Germans when they get double activations for their formations. Their formations activate twice during each of the first 2 turns. It can be almost too much fun just smashing blue blocks and orange blocks and tan blocks and red ones, and maybe not getting to what you need to get to. What the German player has to do is you have to use deception, deception, deception. It's very important to try and mask from the Allied player as long as possible what your true intention is, what it is that you're trying to achieve. And you might use some feints, you might do some different things. And I'm going to try and do a little bit of that here in the game. Again, I'm not saying anything I do in the game is like the optimal play, but I'm just going to show you some of what the thinking might be as you're playing the 2 sides. But for the German, I'll try and do some deception things, or at least share my thinking as to what I might be trying to do if I was playing the Germans. So you want to use that deception. You want to mask your intentions. And you got to stay focused on what's here. In some ways, when I play, I kind of think it's almost like kind of like a presidential election here in the States, where you have to kind of get to the magic number of electoral votes. You got to figure out how you can piece together 270 electoral votes. Well, here you got to figure out how can I cobble together 10 victory points out of the objectives that have been assigned to me by the High Command, or which in effect you chose. And you got to factor, okay, well, gee, I might risk 2 blocks, lose a VP here for the loss of 2 blocks, but I know I can get some bonuses if I do that, and so on. So you got to work it together and figure out how you can get to the magic number of 10. So we're going to do a divide and conquer down the middle. I'm just going to put this over here for now. We'll refer to that in a bit, but normally that'd be hidden. That would be kept hidden by the German player over here. They can refer to it. The other 5 would be off-site somewhere back in the box, whatever, so the Allied player would have no idea what the actual strategy is. Now, when you're ready to play, the German players pick the strategy card. They got their player cards dealt. The Allies have their cards. You're then going to seed, S-E-E-D, seed. I'm just using America's Heroes Mission Barbecue cup here as my opaque container. But we're going to seed the container with certain command chits, and it says so here on the turn chart. So we're going to have 2 of A, 2 of B, the BEF, the French first, the French ninth. That's what goes into the cup. Now I'm going to pull an A and a B out for a moment, put the others in the cup or in the opaque bag, etc., etc. Put them in there. What happens to start the game? The German player gets to pick, and this is the only time in the game when a command chit is selected instead of pulled. They get to pick either A or B to start with. And that's an interesting decision right off the bat for the German player, because there's implications to each choice here. So we're going to try and go down the middle. So I might be tempted to start with A, and there's some advantage there. I can get up in the Ardennes right away. I can maybe hit some of the Belgians. I can get up to this river line maybe, or close to it. I can set myself up for a situation. However, maybe I'm telegraphing my intentions if I do that. Of course, if I go B, apologies for the clock in the background. If I go B, maybe I can do a little feint, make them think I'm going up to the coast. So I don't know. I'm gonna go B here, and I'm gonna put A back in the cup, and I'm gonna go with formation B to start. I'm gonna announce that, okay, that's gonna be the first formation to start playing. Again, the Germans get to pick that first one because they were the attacker, the aggressor in the actual battle, and it's a situation where I'm trying to replicate that aspect of things. Now, something important to keep in mind as well is the neutrality of the Netherlands and Belgium. The Allies cannot enter Belgium or the Netherlands, and frankly I've never actually seen them get into the Netherlands, but Belgium's an interesting case here. They can't violate that neutrality until the Germans do. So if I activate B, and I'm very careful about where I go with B, and I don't cross the Belgian border, I don't know what the next command chit is going to be out here. It could be the French ninth. It could be the BEF. It could be the first. And if it is, and I have not violated Belgian neutrality, the BEF cannot run up here into Belgium and start setting up a defense. Nor can the first. The ninth can't move into the Ardennes and slow me down there because I haven't violated that neutrality. So in this case, I'm gonna go B as my starter for a couple of reasons. And the first thing you'll do when a formation is activated is you'll reveal the headquarters to your opponent. Usually just turn it face up like that. There's the headquarters. You're demonstrating that the blocks are in command, and then you proceed. Now, we're going to now start by attacking the Netherlands, and we're going to go here, and the way I have it set up, infantry, a mech and an infantry blocks here and here, Group B's sole tank block is back here with the HQ. Remember, in Dunkirk, France 1940, infantry blocks have 2 movement points, mechanized and armor have 3 movement points, and that really comes into play specifically when you're crossing unbridged river hecksides, because it costs 2 movement points to cross an unbridged river heckside. So infantry basically have to start on one side of the river and then get across it, and they can't move any further. Armor mech could move up 1 and cross, or they could cross and move 1 additional, again, if they're unbridged. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my cards and see if I want to play an event. Now let's see what the Germans have here. They got paratroops. That's going to be very nice, because we probably will hit Evan de Mail and Yvonne de Mail, and I'll show how that works. Okay, we got a nice 3 at 4 airstrike, but also there's 2 armor step replacements, and they're pretty valuable as well. Engineers is a beautiful card. Oh, it's a very powerful card. It does not negate the cost to go across an unbridged or bridged river heckside. Well, bridge is just one, of course, but it doesn't change the cost to cross a river. But what it does is it negates the defense benefits for that. Maybe we'll get a chance to demonstrate that. Ooh, we have German card number 2, another nice one. Airstrike 3 at 5. Of course, all airstrikes are reduced in city, forest, or fortress. Be 3 at 3 or less on the 10-sided die. But we have some nice replacements here we could take as well for that. So I'm not going to play a card. Even if I had something like pontoon bridges, I probably would not play it here this early. So I'm just going to hang on to those because we have other purposes for them as we go along. So let's move into Nijmegen with 2 infantry blocks, and we're going to go over a land hex side, so there's no defensive benefits other than the city to the defenders. We'll cross the Meuse River here, 1, 2, 1, 2. We'll cross here, 1, 2, 1, 2. We'll enter Maastricht by land instead of over the river or a bridge, and we'll move those 2 blocks in there, and we'll move up here to the edge with the armor block and then stand the HQ up. I recommend moving the headquarters block last because I think it's just handy. You can see where everything is and then position it in a way that everybody's in command at the end of movement. And you'll note we did not violate Belgian neutrality, so we'll see what happens on the next chit pool. The active player, the player commanding the active formation, decides the sequence in which battles are resolved, and in this case they're basically the same battle. We're just going to go to Nijmegen here, and the first thing that happens in a battle is both sides reveal where they are at. Now, I'm going to talk here in a moment about some battle cards and things that we played, event cards, as we go through the turn. But once they're revealed, the first declaration will be a battle card. Now, the Germans could play a battle card. I could play an airstrike, for example, something like that. I'm not going to do that because the defenders here, the Dutch defenders, they can be pretty stout at times and put up a good fight, but they are 2 steps at 2 or less, and they're facing 6 steps of German infantry. Maybe it takes me a couple turns to root them out of these cities, but I'm not going to take the resource here to spend on them. And one thing about the cards, and I'm going to do this throughout our playthrough, I'm going to mention various rules and things, and again, I hope that is helpful to you. Keep in mind there are different kind of uses of cards. Each card has 2 uses, and they're labeled there with banners. One is reinforcement, the green banner. One other type is called event. There's events. They have kind of this purplish magenta banner. And then battle cards have a blue banner on them. Keep in mind that for the active formation, the formation can play 1 event for the entire formation per activation. 1 event per formation per activation. Now here, this is the first activation for B. I could play an event. I don't know, maybe I played engineers, whatever it is. If I had to press the attack, I could play that event and so on. The next activation, I could play another event, but I can only play 1 for this activation. Battle cards, you can play a single battle card in as many battles as the formation is involved in. Okay, so you can play multiple battle cards in terms of hexes, but only 1 per battle. But you can only play 1 event for the entire formation. The other wrinkle about battle cards is the Allies cannot play battle cards in situations where French or British forces are not involved. So if it's only a Belgian or only a Dutch defender, or in a situation or in a battle hex, attacker or defender, the Allies cannot play a battle card there because they can only use their battle supports in battle hexes where French or British forces are involved. So let's take a look here. Let's just go through and let's dice this out. We look at the terrain effects chart. It's on the rulebook there, and in a city, the sequence is defending infantry and mech first, and then attacking. In his case, it's all infantry. Defender fires first in a class, unless altered by the card sequence. So the Dutch have 2 at 2, and we'll kind of roll this. They get a 2 and a 4, so they inflict a hit. And the Germans get 5 at 3, basically, 3 on the one block, 2 on the other. So 5 at 3 for the Germans, double 4, double 6. They aren't going to take it out, and they got 1. They got 1 hit. Okay, so that's where the battle stands. Battles are 1 round in Dunkirk, France, 1940, unless the active player wants to purchase a second round of battle. There's 2 ways you can do that. You can have a press the attack event card. If you're the Germans, you could press the attack, for example, in this situation. Or what you could do, you could spend 2 Supreme Headquarters points to buy a second round of battle. The Allies want to knock the Germans out of a hex. They need a second round. They could spend 2 Supreme points. They could buy a second round of battle if they are the attacker. Note that the defender can never force a second round of battle by spending points. It's only the active player, who would, of course, be the attacker. They can get the second round. The defender doesn't have that choice. In this case, the Germans, because they have another activation coming up, they're not going to spend that resource to knock out that last step of defenders. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, well, I'll come back to that in a moment, but keep in mind that airstrikes and artillery strikes off these cards cannot eliminate enemy blocks, whether you're attacking, defending, whatever the case is. If it blocks down to 1 step, an airstrike or artillery strike cannot eliminate that block. They can take blocks down to a step, but cannot eliminate. So let's lather, rinse, repeat. Same kind of battle here. They're not going over a bridge or a river, so there's no extra dice with it. But we are in a city. The Dutch roll 2 at 2. And they get a 1 and a 7. So already, now I will tell you, these steps that the Germans are losing right here will have an impact later in the game. You get into turn 4, turn 5, etc. They're going to have an impact because every step is precious to the Germans. Especially important to them, another tip for you, is the armor steps, and especially for Formation A, which is the stronger of the two formations. They have 2 blocks that have 3 at 5 as their maximum strength, and they have a block that's 2 at 6. You really have to be careful with the German armor blocks. They're very powerful, but they're very brittle, and they're a key part of the punching power of both formations, because B has a 3-step tank as well. So the Germans will now roll their 5 at 3 here on their portion. So they roll a 1 and a 9, a 9 and a 9, and a 3. So they got it. So Maastricht falls. Dutch and Belgian blocks, when they are eliminated from play, are eliminated permanently. So we could toss this out if you had a token or something. In this case, I'm just going to turn them face down as a marker. And the Germans have captured that space. So the Dutch, the Belgians, permanently out of play. Also the BEF. BEF blocks, if eliminated, are permanently out of play as well. That's something the Allied player needs to keep in mind when they're working with the BEF. Okay, so we got the first activation done. Let's roll through some things here. The next command sheet is... It is the French 9th. Look at that. Okay, so first thing the French will do, they'll reveal the headquarters. There we go. And we have some decisions to make. We cannot... We just can't enter Belgium and take up defense there. We can't come into this hex. And you can see on the map, on your copy of the map, you'll see the shadings indicating the national borders. So Belgium comes the whole way down to here, around Luxembourg, so on and so forth. Well, in view of that, maybe we will draw this fellow back across the river for 2 points. He's an infantry block. We'll put him on this side of the river. Again, we'd have done that setup, except that's not a setup area. So that's 2. We're going to move the headquarters block back 2. And so we'll have the 3 blocks up here and the HQ back here to protect it. And that'll be the French 9th activation. Now, let me just say something. You will find sometimes, and this is more so with the Allies than with the Germans, you might find sometimes when your command sheet is drawn, for example, if the BEF was drawn right now, where would they go? They're up on the Belgian border. They can't enter Belgium yet. They're in a good defensive position. They might just stay there. And there might be points later in a game where an Allied formation or Allied blocks are in a good position. They don't want to leave that position. That's okay. They can't put their chip back in the container and get drawn later, but that's what they do. Okay, we're just going to sit tight for now. That will happen sometime. So let's see what happens here with the next command sheet, and it is B again. So B is going to get to go again. So we will reveal. Now we're probably going to have to violate neutrality, I think. Or do we want to sit tight yet again? Well, let's go for it. Let's go into Belgium. All right, we're going to hit. We're going to finish off, hopefully, this block here at Nijmegen. Let's move an infantry and an infantry into Eindhoven. Let us now cross this river. We don't want to go into the fortress. We could go via bridge if we want. Let's come up to here. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now you can move through your own blocks during movement, just as long as you're stacking of maximum 2 blocks per side per hex, as long as that's not exceeded at the end of movement. So we're going to move this infantry block, one of our elites. He has 3 at 4. Move him into the fort via land. You know, I tell you, I was going to put a mech in there, but we can't. So I think what we're going to do is take one of these fellows who started here. We had a fellow who started here. He's also going to move overland and go in there, and we'll put the mech here into Eindhoven instead. The mobile forces, the tank, and the HQ will cross the river for 2 points, and everybody's in command, and there we go. So this is a pre-existing battle. Now, let me just take this as a case study for you for a moment. I mentioned sometimes in the cards and in the rules about new battles and about existing battles and so on. Let's just say that, for example, let's suppose this battle had started and maybe I came over a river hex side, or I didn't, or I came over a bridge, or just overland, whatever the case might be. If I came over a river or bridge, those effects are only in play for the first activation when I initially came over, when there was no one in there. In this case, it wasn't true. I came over land, but hopefully you understand my point here. Suppose that had been a river or bridge hex side, and that's how I get in there. The river or bridge defensive benefits would only last for that first activation. Then I'd have a bridgehead at that point. So once the battle is engaged and it's ongoing, the river and bridge effects are in place. Now the city effect is always in place because that's, in this particular case, that's a city. A forest is always a forest and so on. But those river and bridge effects are only in place when I start a new battle. New meaning there was nobody in there, no existing battle. I wasn't shuffling blocks in and out. I just went in for the first time. Those effects take place. I'm going to temporarily just move these guys. I'll mark them here. I'm going to temporarily move these guys to illustrate another point, how you might do a shuffle. Let's suppose this battle's going on and these guys are chewed up. I'm not going to bother changing the values, but let's suppose there was, you know, either a couple Dutch, maybe this is a French hex back in here. I'm just taking a hex as an example for you. If I wanted to shuffle blocks in and out, okay, can I disengage, so to speak, forward? Well, yes, you can. You can disengage kind of forward, and the reason I did that was because, you know, if you look at the campaign, the Germans especially do this a lot, but the Allies could too. They could disengage forward, but the Germans showed up in unexpected places, and really the Allies were like, oh, how'd they get over here? How'd they get there? It's kind of an abstract way to simulate that, on the German side at least, without a whole lot of rules overhead. But it's also something the Allies can use as well. You can disengage from a battle hex, you just cannot re-engage that same activation when you can't leave one battle and enter another battle. But you could disengage if necessary. So again, let's take this hex not as the Dutch and what's going on in our little playthrough, but let's just say it's a hex anywhere on the board. And let's imagine there might have been two French blocks in there and some other Allies back here. Basically, if suppose these guys were chewed up and I want to cycle them in and out, I could disengage them. Pretend this is clear for the example. I could disengage them forward, perhaps, to their full movement, 1, 2, or something, if it's clear, or 1, whatever the case might be. If there weren't rivers there, what have you. But I could then also, that same activation, bring guys in to replace them. Have I started a quote-unquote new battle? No, I have not. I've just kind of cycled through in an existing battle. And that's how you kind of manage the battles. And sometimes you might have battles where you're, especially up in this river line or down here, you might get some things, or down here I've seen it too, where you get some troops fighting for a couple activations or several turns, where both sides are shuffling guys in and out of the battle, and that's how you would do that. In this case, we have an existing battle, and again, I'm not going to spend a resource because, reminder, air and artillery strikes cannot eliminate a block. Only take it down to 1. Here the Dutch are at 1, and they get a 9, and the Germans have 5 at 3, and they go 4 and a 9. There's a 3 and an 8. Okay, so Nijmegen is captured for the Germans. And we'll go on to Eindhoven. Again, if the Dutch could get another step off of these guys, that would be pretty handy. Same situation, overland attack, no extra dice for the defender, no battle cards being played by the Axis. Allies cannot because there's no French or British in there. 2 at 2 for the Dutch, and they get a 3 and a 0. The Germans have 6 at 3. And there's a 7 and an 8, 4 and a 9. Dice are cold today, and a 1 and an 8. So, decision. Do I press the attack event? I don't have one, but if I had it, I'd have to consider. Do I spend 2 steps? No, I'm just going to sit tight. So the original owner stands up to denote original ownership, and the attacker is left face up. Now, a couple things to remind you of. You're going to find as you go through there's a fight or flight rule that affects the Germans, the French, and the British. It does not impact the Dutch, it does not impact the Belgians. And that fight or flight rule is, at the start of an activation, if a French, British, or German block is engaged with blocks of the enemy, they must either fight in that hex or get out. And for the Germans, that would include the neutrals. If they're in a block hex with the neutrals, they have to fight or flight. Again, the Dutch and Belgians are immune. They don't have to attack. They don't have to do anything. They can just sit there. But let's take a case where, well, first let's follow through that example. Let's say we had a situation back here where the Germans have attacked Lille, and this is later in the game or something, and the Germans are in there in the BEF, or maybe it's the French, who knows what. They activate. They have to do their fight or flight. And depending on what the strengths of the blocks are, that's an interesting tactic for both sides to remember. If you can grapple with and come to grips with, get your arms around the enemy in a city, depending on how strong they are, you can force them into some difficult decisions. They either got to fight or they got to get out, and it's a way to eject forces from a city potentially if they don't want to do the fight, or put them into a situation where they have to fight you, and that's sometimes a way to get them out. Now, the reason that rule's in there, just in case anyone wondered, was during playtesting I found that if I didn't have it, the cities really became like fortresses everywhere around the board. Especially for the Allies, you'd put a couple guys with 6 steps in there, and they could sit there pretty much indefinitely, and you could keep feeding the block in, and it became very, very difficult. And that's not the nature, the spirit of this game. It's a fast-moving 6-turn game, and it keeps things moving that way. It keeps a fluidity, if you will, to the campaign. So that's an aspect there as well, that fight or flight aspect. one other thing to keep in mind about who's standing up and who's face up and so on. Let's say that was a French block. Just, I'll take the Supreme for a moment. Let's just suppose it was some hex somewhere in France. Doesn't matter where. Here the French are the original owners of the hex at this point. The Germans have not acquired ownership yet. But suppose on the French activation they're in a fight or flight and they decide to fight. And maybe it's only one block, it doesn't matter, 1, 2, whatever they're against. They decide to fight. The point I'm trying to make is, even if the original owner on their activation attacks the enemies in that fight or flight scenario, in that hex, the other side becomes the defender, and they'd be entitled to defender sequence if applicable. For example, if it was in a city, and again, here we have a city, but suppose the Germans attacked into this city and it was the French there and they had infantry, the French would have fired first in the sequence. But if the French on their activation decided, I'm not going to flight, I'm going to fight, I'm not going to run, I'm going to fight, they decide to attack the Germans would then become the defender just for that activation, for that sequence. So the ownership does not determine who the defender and attacker is, it's who's the active player and if they're actually engaging in the battle. So we have that going on there. Let's go over here to Abonamail, and we reveal the blocks. Now the fortress, as you know from the terrain effects chart, is pretty stout defense there. It's 5 dice at 3 or less, and they roll first. Unless the Germans have the paratroop event. And fortunately for us, we do. We have the paratroop event. And that's handy if the Germans get that on the first turn. Sometimes can it be played subsequent if I attacked and kind of engaged and got a battle going in the fortress? Fortress effects are in effect until such time as this card is played. But I might engage and start the attack, and then I got it the next turn, so I might play it then, and then for the second turn maybe wipe out the or third turn or whatever it might be, wipe out the terrain effects, the fortress effects. But in this case we have it, so we'll play it. We'll play that card, and it's going to negate the fortress effects. That's the only event card I can play for this formation, for this activation, not for the turn, but for this activation. So now instead we treat it as simply a city. And I did not come across a bridge or river, no extra dice. The Belgian defender will roll first, 2 at 2, and a 99. And the Germans roll 3 at 4 and 3 at 3. 3 at 4 gets a 3 and a 9 and a 3. So they got the 2 hits, and because of the aid of the paratroops negating the fortress effects, the fort falls. Now, why did I attack there in the first place? Because, our objective card over here, if you recall, did not say anything about we have to capture every Belgian city, but it did say we have to eliminate all the Belgian blocks. And there are some coastal cards where capturing all the Belgian cities. There's some other cards where capturing all the Belgians is an objective. So I'm trying to mask what I'm trying to do, what my objectives are. In case of the allied player is likely they might be generally familiar with all the objectives on the various cards, and they might have a sense, hey, I think those coastal things, you got to take that for some of those, and trying to again create that deception. So B is done with its activation. That's their second activation for the turn. Let's keep rolling along. A gets into the game. Okay, Belgian neutrality's been violated. There's the HQ. Let's move them out. So through the forest, 1, 2, 1, 2, because as you know by terrain effects, the forest does not impede, and you can move up to unimpeded through the forest area. So we have 2 there, and we're going to go 2 here, a little town called Bastogne. By the way, just a note for you on the game board. Towns that have little clear, tiny, or smaller circles, clear circles like Gembloux, Bastogne, they're there just for Verdun. They're there for aesthetic value, historical interest, that sort of thing, to give you a sense of where things were. The cities that get the terrain benefits are the solid dots with the big words, or the ports, or the capitals. They get those benefits. So let's advance 2 here, 2 here, 1, 2, and now we're going to hit here. We're going to come across this bridge through the forest and hit Liège, and what we're going to do there is a bridge assault into that Belgian city. Meanwhile, the way we've set this up, we have our fast movers back here. They're going to enter play 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. There's an infantry with them, but a little bit of congestion, and that happens oftentimes with Formation A for the Germans on their first activation. It takes a while to get through the Ardennes, but eventually they do. But we're able to hit the Belgians here at Liège, and this is a bridge assault. Now I'm not going to play a battle card again. It's 2 steps. I think we can handle them. They're going to get 3 dice in defense this time because we came across a bridge. That entitles 1 defender, in this case there is only 1, to an extra die. So 3 at 2 for the Belgians. A 6, and an 8. So no hits there for the Belgians, and that means the Germans are now going to roll 6 at 3. There's a 7-9, 3-4, and one more hit needed. 7-9, they did not knock it out, so the Belgians will stand up. Again, we had the option to play an event card. Well, we could play an event card. We haven't played an event for the formation yet. Could play press the attack. I'm not going to do it. Not going to spend the 2 points right now because I think we got a second activation. We'll see how it goes. So let's see what's next out of the cup, and it's the Brits. The British Expeditionary Force will activate. I think that's the HQ. Yes, it is. The HQ will activate, and they're a nice formation. They're all mechanized. They all move 3. They have pretty good combat value, and they're especially tough if you put a couple of them behind a river line. That's a good defense. So sometimes I've seen Allied players put the BEF here on the Dender River, and they kind of line up like that, a couple there, and maybe they swing the first back in here across it and get a nice formation there guarding the coast, but that leaves maybe the center and and down towards Paris open. So not sure what the Germans are doing yet. It's only the first turn. It's kind of a broad-based advance. We don't know where they're at. We could come up here into Ghent with 1 block and help the Belgians defend. That's a possibility. In fact, I think we're going to do that. We're going to put 1 BEF block here in Ghent. Ghent's an interesting hex. It's a lot of bridges going in and out of there, and it really becomes especially anything coastal or center, it can oftentimes become a critical objective. So let's put some BEF blocks here. We'll put the HQ here again, command range at 2. Okay, that'll work. It's not ideal, but it should work. So that'll be the BEF's activation. Next up is A, which of course by default means that the French first will be the last. We'll get to them in a moment. So let's look at A again here on the second activation. We have an existing battle here, but there's 1 step left. I'm going to disengage from this battle with these guys. Now here's a classic example of how I'm going to shuffle troops in and out of a battle without initiating a quote-unquote new battle triggering river and our bridge effects. I'm going to disengage forward, and I'm actually going to hit Brussels with a bridge assault here. Oh wait, I can't. I can't disengage and move into battle, so I can't do that. Crud. Alright, well I'll just go here to Jumbo. So I'm going to take these guys out, and it doesn't matter if it's temporarily vacant while you're moving stuff. You know, the point is the battle being ongoing, and it is. So I'm going to put another fellow in there. I'm just going to put one block in there to get rid of that last step. I'm going to hit Charleroi by bridge. 1, 2, and I'm going to take the mech and run him through there. And I will tell you, putting tanks into cities is usually not a good idea. And I know the hexes are very broad, but the way the terrain effects work out, putting armor into cities is, unless absolutely necessary, is not always the best idea. Infantry and mech is best. Infantry certainly is best overall, but I have a feeling, again, that's only a 2-stepper. I know there are 2 steps. Don't know if he's a 2 or 3. I can't remember how we set him up, but no, there's 2 steps there. I think we can get him with a bridge assault, and they'll get through an extra die. Okay, now if only I had pontoon bridges, I could really make some progress here, but I don't. So that's out the window. So let's keep our advance going. Do we want to come across here and cross this bridge and hit these 2 blocks at Sedan? Well, we could. We could hit that, chew up some blocks. Remember, one of our objectives on our card is to knock out 5 French blocks. So I think what we'll do, though, is, because that's going to get us bogged down. It might be a little far afield of what we're trying to do. Let's get up here in the cul-de-sac. So I'm going to put some guys up in the river line. I can't get across, see, because it's 1. I'd need 3 points to do that. So I can go 1, 2, put them there. I can get a tank block up here, though. It's going to reveal he's a mechanized or our tank unit. I can bring these fellas up to here. I can put him up there. 1, 2, 3. It's fairly stout. And I can put the headquarters here, I believe, because everybody A's will be within 1, 2, 3 of him. And I'll put the tank in here. In fact, I'm going to leave this fellow back here with the tank unit. And again, it's because we're in forest. If the second on the game turn 2, when they come into play, got adventurous, they could try and harass our flank here, and we don't want that. We don't like that. Again, here's why some of these guys aren't in the box. The 2nd and the 7th aren't in the cup on the first turn until the game turn 2. Reserve isn't the reserve army. Doesn't come into play until turn 3. Why did I do that? Trying to simulate some of the shock, surprise, some formations being frozen in place, if you will, and until they get up. Whoa, wait a minute! There's the Belgians and Dutch, certainly the shock effect. You know, we can't even move around yet until turn 2. To simulate some of that aspect of okay, this is a real attack. we've got to respond, so on and so forth. So let's fight out the battles we have here. We have a continuing battle here. And again, no battle cards being played. One for the Belgians. Again, they don't get the bridge bonus because we already had our bridgehead previously. I was just shuffling guys in and out. So 1 at 1 for the Belgians, and they get a 9. 3 at 3 for the Germans. 7 and an 8. And a 2 on the last roll. They get it. And the city falls. Now, so we had that battle. Let's fight this one here. We had a river assault at Charleroi. I'm not going to play a card. They're going to get 3 at 2. Looks like it's a 2-stepper there. Or 2 at 2. They get an extra one. 3 at 2. 8, 0, 2, 1 hit. Ooh, now we have an elite infantry at 4 and a mech at 3. We're going to take it off the mech at 3. So we'll roll the infantry at 4. 3 at 4. Ooh, a 7 and a 9. And an 8. Ooh, and then 2 at 3 for the mech. And he gets a hit. So the Belgians are doing their thing. And they're slowing up the German advance. And that is that. And the last formation to move will be the first formation, and they started in these hexes. Let me see where I put the headquarters. Probably in the middle somewhere. Yep, there it is. Okay. So, decisions. Looks like there's a breakthrough coming here. We don't know where the Germans are going. Are they going coastal, or are they coming down? There's a nice gap in here in the map. Starting back here at Gembloux down to Cambrai, and if they can cut through on this side of the rivers, it's like a highway down to the south, if that's where they're going, but it also is a highway to some of the other parts in the back area of the map. So I think we might want to, well, if we fight here in clear terrain, when there's a mech, the German tanks are somewhere, we don't know where they're at. And attacking armor in clear terrain can be pretty powerful if there's no defending armor to thwart it. And I will tell you, the Allies, the only 2 tank blocks they have are present in the reserve formation, the reserve army, and they don't come into play until turn 3. So you got to watch clear terrain in the German block. So I think what we'll do is, let's see, is this guy he's from the 9th. He's no help. All right, let's, I'm just going to put these up temporarily. Let's put the HQ on this side of the river for 2 points. Let's put a 3-step infantry block, leave him here to hold the gap. Let's bring this mechanized member of the 1st, 1, 2 to Cambrai. Let's put a 2nd block here on this side of the river for 2 points, and let's bring this mech 1, 2. So we'll kind of shuffle them around and defend, because we're not sure where they're going yet. And rather than move forward, which we could have done, we could have even come in here and attacked these 2 blocks if we felt we had the reach, but the way we were set up, we didn't have enough mech there with us, and we decided not to. So that'll be our play, and that's the end of game turn 1. So now we get kind of to the end of the turn for this kind of what we call the reserves and reinforcement phase. Now, in this particular case, the first thing to do is, do we want to take our free supreme step? Now, there's 2 points in this sequence where the player could take the free step. One is right now at the start of this sequence, or they could do it at the end of the sequence, and I'll explain why in a moment here. The reason we don't want to take it now is we're both maxed out at 4. We never use our supreme steps here on turn 1, so neither player is going to take their free step now. We're going to reinforcements. The first thing we do is does either side want to play a reinforcement card? You can play 1 reinforcement card per game turn, and you use it to add steps to blocks that are on the board, in command, not in battle. Again, the Supreme Headquarters never adds steps to a block that's on the board. It's only through the reinforcement cards you can only play 1. Now, the Germans have 2 armor steps, 2 infantry steps, but they give up engineers, 2 supreme steps or an armor step, and they really haven't lost that many. They lost some in here in B to the neutrals. We're not going to play a card. The Allies, similarly, and you got to watch because most of their reinforcements are French only. There's very few BEF specific or BEF eligible reinforcement steps going through, but they aren't going to play one either. So no reinforcements will be played. The reserves phase is where we would bring eliminated blocks back into play. No one's been eliminated yet. And maybe on turn 2 we can walk through how that goes. So those things are done, and at this point we could also now take the free supreme step if we wanted, but we haven't used them on game turn 1. That happens sometimes. That occurs sometimes. So neither side's going to have it. They're going to basically lose their free step for the turn. That's okay. They're maxed out at 4. They're ready to go. So we'll now go to the start of turn 2, and we will seed the cup again with all the command chits. This is the last game turn in which the Germans get double A and double B activations. These will come out at the end of turn 2, start of turn 3, I should say. And the Germans will get 1 activation just like all the other formations. So now entering the fray, there are the Belgians, the Dutch, the French 7th, and the French 2nd, and they all go into the cup. And we're also going to deal out cards according to what it tells us here on the game turn track, the Germans get 3 additional cards, and the Allies get 2. And at that point, that is the end of turn 1 and the setup phase for turn 2, and we're ready to pull a command chit and begin the second turn of the game. I'm going to get a quick sip of water here before we start turn 2. And so here we go. So let's take a look what the Germans got. In addition to what they had, ooh, they got a Blitzkrieg card. Nice. All the blocks, regardless of class, fire first as long as one of them's an armor block. Could be negated by counter-strike. Panzer Blitz, tank block rolls, and Exploitation. Exploitation is a nice little card. You know, you get somewhere, you just need that one more hex to reach an objective. You can play that as an event. Ooh, and we got German card 1. This is nice. We got cards 1 and 2, which is pretty sweet because they have nice 555 airstrikes there. Let's see what the Allies got on theirs. Ooh, fuel shortage. Fuel shortage and mines are nasty little things the Allies can do to the Germans. 1 use per game per card. They can play 1 fuel shortage, 1 mine. Only 1 use per activation, of course, as well. But that can really slow down the German advance. Oh, and they got Allied card 1. 444 airstrike. Some nice reinforcements there for them as well. So, okay, let's see how turn 2 goes. And hopefully now you're starting to get a sense of the rhythm and feel of the game. So we'll maybe go a tad more quickly here on turn 2. I will say the first 2 turns of the game take them the longest time because you have more blocks in play. You got the double German activations. The whole game itself plays in roughly 1 hour and 50 to 2 hours. But what you'll see is in turns 4, 5, and 6, especially 5 and 6, things go much more quickly. There's fewer blocks on the board, and at that point the action flows even more quickly. So let's see how we go. First out of the cup here for turn 2 is the French first. Okay, now I think we put headquarters back here. Yes, we did. All right, now we set up in a defensive spot, and it would be nice to pop these guys here and give the Germans a bit of a bloody nose. Could we do that? We could hit them with an infantry and a mech in the clear. We don't know what's in there. And again, we have some pretty good defensive positions. I tell you what we're going to do. We're actually going to fall back and use these rivers to our advantage. Let's bring this infantry back over this river. We'll keep the mech here at Cambrai to kind of plug the hole, and that's all we're going to do. And that's okay. That's an okay thing to do. So let's hit the next block, and it is A. A is going to show their headquarters and activate. Where to go, where to go. Now the Allied player right now is thinking, do I want to hit them with fuel shortage right now? Now in this case it may or may not be of use because they're still in pretty close contact with the frontline French troops. The fuel shortage limits the mech and armors to 2 movement points, so they can't like cross and then move, and they can't move 3. We know there's a mech here, so he would not be able to, but we really don't see a good use for it right now. Let's just keep it in our back pocket, make them into play later at some point. So now the Germans, meanwhile, they got to figure out what I need pontoon bridges. Where are they? Who knows where they are? They're still trying to get up to the front. So it would really be nice to have some pontoons. We don't have it. Let's go back to our card. What are we trying to hit here? Okay. Charleroi, we got that. We want to come to grips with the 9th of the BEF. Eliminate 5 blocks. Shatter the 1st. We kind of have a general idea. The 9th is somewhere in here. Okay. I tell you what, let's do. All right. Let's take advantage of the fact that we have some possibilities here. Let's punch a hole. And if we can punch a hole here, maybe get them to think we're going down there. We'll do a river assault here. 1-2 with the infantry. 1-2 with that armor. You know, if we had a mech, we could hit him with a mech, but we don't. We could disengage there, but that's not going to help us either. All right, I'll tell you what. Let's hit Brussels this way, by landward side. Let's come forward to Jamblo with this fella. Let's reinforce him with the mech. Actually, let's disengage the mech up to here and disengage forward with that infantry. So we're going to come out of Charleroi with those 2 blocks, take up a river posting. We're going to hit Charleroi though, 1-2. An ongoing battle, not a new battle. We'll attack there. We'll have this fella cross to get a nice double block defensive line there. So if we can get across here, 1-2. boy, I'm tempted to go 1, 2, 3 and hit that with the tank. I don't know what's there, but even if we succeed, we got a tank sitting out there on the clear with it's subject to airstrikes potentially. Never good. And sometimes some German players like putting both their strong tank blocks together and roll through the countryside, smashing everything blue in its path. But the downside is there's nothing. If you hit with an airstrike or artillery strike, there's nothing to absorb any losses except the tank steps. I don't like that. Don't want to do that. So I'm going to do that instead. I'm going to crawl my way over to here, and I'm going to put the HQ. I can't put the HQ over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, because that puts these boys out of command. So we're going to have to do something like this, because I doubt the second's going to be able to sweep around and get us. So if I could put the tank block with it, just for the heck of it, stand the HQ up. So everybody's in command. We get an infantry defending the forest here, covering the flank. And again, this is one of the worries about not hitting the second right away, but it's trade-offs. So they're command, command, command. Everybody's in command the whole way over. Let's fight some battles. Let's continue the fight at Charleroi. The Belgians will get 1 at 1. Again, existing battle now, because we have a bridgehead. They get a 3. We have 3 at 3 for the Germans, and then we get the hit, and Charleroi falls. So let's go over here to Brussels. Brussels. This is a landward attack, though. We did not come over across a bridge, so we have no additional dice for the Belgian. Germans, again, are not going to play a battle card here in this scenario, in this situation. They could if they want. We're not going to. 2 at 3 for the Belgians, a 9 and a 4. The Germans get 6 at 3, 4 and a 7, 4 and a 6, 2 and a 0. German armaments are a little underpowered here, and the Belgians are fighting tough. So they hold at Brussels. You know what? I want Brussels. I'm going to spend 2 points of the Supreme Headquarters, and I'm going to buy a second round of battle, because I don't want guys coming in there and giving me a hard time. I'm going to hit them again. 1 at 2 for the Belgians, an 8. 6 at 3 for the Germans, 84, 65, wow. 0, 5, 10, 0, by the way, remember, a 0 is a 10 on these dice in the game. So wasted 2 points for naught. Now, had that been a bridge assault, for example, and I bought a second round, that extra die for the defender would have carried into the second round, the purchased round. In addition, no battle cards can be played in the purchased round, only initially. If you're going to play one, you got to play it when you start. So let's zip over here, and now we have an interesting opportunity for cards to be played. The Allies going to play a battle card here. Now this is clear. This is a river assault, clear terrain, but the river assault aspect changes the order. The tanks are not going to fire first here. The French infantry at 2 steps will, but the Germans have to declare a battle card first. I could play engineers and negate the effect. I'm not going to do that for a 2-step unit. I could play an airstrike. I'm not going to do that and knock it down 1 step, because that's all I can take out. Because again, airstrikes, artillery strike cannot eliminate a block. I'm not going to play a battle card here. And the Allies are looking at this thinking, okay, well, here we got a fuel shortage, we got a negation of an airstrike card, Spirit of the Gaul is a nice thing, counterstrike's handy. Ooh, but this is sweet, because we have one of the German strong tank blocks there, and a 3-step infantry. We're going to play 3 at 4, an airstrike, 3 at 4. Now the sequence there is important, by the way. The attacking player, the active player, must declare first what battle card is being played, and then the defending player gets a chance to see. And that's important too. But let me give you an example here. There's an RAF sortie card, and the French Air Force, Armée de l'Air. These cards negate Axis airstrikes. Well, basically the defender gets to see what battle card the other side's playing first. I mean, the Allies in this example, for example, would not have to play this blind. Well, I hope he has an airstrike. No, they get to see if he has an airstrike, and okay, I'm negating it. They have like a counterstrike card they can play. If the Germans have blitzkrieg, they can negate it with this, or if the Germans played something else, they can play this, and the French all get to go first. The Allies all get to go first. But the defending player gets to see first what's being played, and then they can respond with their battle card. And again, no one's required to play a battle card in any case, but that's the sequence. So the Germans passed, did not play one. The Allies did play one, and they're going to hit the German formations with a triple 4 airstrike here. And again, it's 4 because the terrain itself is clear. Airstrikes, artillery, could care less about rivers and bridges. They just worry about the hex. In this case, clear terrain, 3 at 4. Let's see what we have. A 1, a 7, and a 9. So they took 1 step. Okay. They might have got some more. You never know. There's the potential. Now we go to the blocks battling it out, and the French fire 3 at 2 because they get an extra die. A river assault. Every block in defending gets an extra die. In this case, there's only one. So he'll roll 3 dice at 2, and he gets a 6, and a 1. And that has to come off the tank step because hits have to be applied evenly. He already took a hit from the airstrike. That has to come there. Now the Germans roll 2 at 3, the infantry first, on a river assault, and they get an 84, and 2 at 6. German tank blocks get a little more punch, it seems, when they get reduced, but that's really just to maintain the consistency of their punching power because the German player needs that. They got a 4 for 1 hit, and they're not going to waste the resource, or spend the resource, I should say, on the second round, so the 9th guy will stand up, and that is that. Let's see what comes out of the cup. A again. Boom, boom, back to back. See if we can do some rock and roll here with the Germans and get some advances. That's annoying, by the way, because basically it ties up that armor block, and he can't continue to exploit. He can come up here and hit this. He could have done a lot of things. So we have a situation there where that defense by that one block has really slowed the German advance. So what are the Germans going to do here? We want to clear this out. So let's hit that with the infantry block, and in fact we're going to bring this tank block 1, 2, and 3. Because we've captured this, we can now bring this tank block 1, 2 across the river and here and avoid a river assault, and we'll come up with supported by the infantry. Let's try and get to this fella here if we can. We'll hit him with a mech and with an infantry. Now we haven't done a whole lot of feinting up this way, just the way the dynamics of the battle have evolved. So we're going to have to go up to here. We have to finish this attack. And we got to really be careful what we do. We got to watch though, because the Brits can come across those rivers. We're going to block them. We're going to hold that, and we're going to kind of get ourselves headquartered in Charleroi, and we'll kind of screen ourselves here. So we got screeners here, and there's a little risk there because the BEF could activate and then potentially activate the next turn ahead of us. Not likely. We're going to get some B guys to help us out. So everybody's in command range. Command range is not blocked by enemy blocks or terrain or anything. So let's fight these battles out. First of all, here in Brussels, you have 1 at 2 for the Belgians. They get a 4, 6 at 3 for the Germans. They get a 2, and Brussels falls. We now have a situation here where, okay, battle cards could be played. Now it's a 3-step mechanized unit. Let's have the Germans play Blitzkrieg. They're going to play Blitzkrieg and let their infantry fire at the same time as their armor because it's clear terrain, but you have a situation where the normal firing sequence in this case would have been the German tank, the French mech, and the German infantry. That card allows the German tank and infantry to fire first, and if there's anything left of the mech, then he would fire. But the others are going to play Counter-Strike and negate it and say, no, we're going to play that. That's our battle card. So they both played a battle card. The sequence will be normal, so let's see what happens here. The German tank, 3 at 5, a 3, a 10, and a 6. 1 hit. The French mech, 2 at 2, whiffs. And the German infantry, 3 at 3, gets a 21, 2 hits. And that block is out of play. We'll just put it off to the side. French blocks can come back into play. I'm going to show you how here at the end of the turn. BEF, Belgians, Dutch, never come back into play. Let's do a fight here. This is not a river assault. The Germans will at 3 steps. They're going to play, let's play Panzer Blitz. 1 attacking armor block rolls 1 extra die in the first round. That makes that 2 at 6, a 3 at 6. The French are short on cards here, and they're not going to play one because they're running a little short here. So clear terrain, defending armor, there is none. Attacking armor, 3 at 6 with the bonus. For the Germans, a 3, a 4, and a 5. And that is the power of a German tank block punching a hole out in the open. So that is resolved. And then over here we have this ongoing battle. They're not going to play a card. They, of course, would not at this point either. 2 at 6 for the German. No longer a river assault. It's now just a clear hex. The tank will roll first. And 3 of the blocks of the 9th formation are eliminated. Let me see here. Does Shattering the 9th do something? Yes, it does. Shattering the 9th would get us points if they remain out of play at the end of the game, but we'll see how that plays out. One more fight here for A, back here at Cambrai, and that's from the first. We're not going to play something for the Germans. French will not either, but they're going to keep that fuel shortage card in hand for next turn because there's a lot of open area down to Paris. Maybe the Germans are going there. We don't know. In this case, it's not a river assault, but we have defending infantry, or armor rather, first. There is none. Attacking armor, none. Defending mech, we do have that. 2 at 3 for the French. 88, nothing. Attacking mech, 2 at 3 for the Germans. 84, nothing. And a 3 at 4 for the infantry for the Germans. A 9, an 8, and a 4. 1 hit. And we're not going to buy that second round, so we're going to stand them up, and the French will maintain ownership of the hex. And that is A's activation. We move on. 7th gets into the fray. Coastal Army, 3 blocks, but they're pretty nice. They have some pretty good strength. I think usually what I like to do with them is I put them up here in a forward position. Here's the infantry. They can take up a defensive line here. I think this is a mech. 1, 2, 3. And the headquarters I will put, I'm going to put him back here as well. And that's what the 7's going to do for me. Just kind of keep an eye on things. B. Turn 2, again, you have a lot of command chits in the cup on turn 2. B is now going to continue this broad advance. What I'm hoping to do with B is put pressure on the coast to pull some guys away from the middle while we can hammer here. And if I can, now the way things have evolved, I may be able to feint them into putting the reserve army down here to protect Paris while I'm actually going here. We'll have to see how it plays out. We're going to disengage from this. We cannot re-engage, of course, so we're going to go 1, 2 up to here. We will bring these fellas out of Nijmegen down to hopefully complete the attack at Eindhoven. We're going to move forward to here. In fact, we're going to move forward to here to Gembloux with B, get them helping out A a little bit. And I don't have any pontoon bridges, so again, the rivers are going to make a little problem. We're going to kind of position ourselves here. So let's fight the Eindhoven battle 1 at 1 for the Dutch, a whiff, and the Germans with 5 at 3, and they get the hit, and that takes care of that. So, that is B's activation. The 9th, what there is of it, activates. Yep, that is the headquarters. He has nothing left. He better get out of dodge because it's getting a little dicey here, and the 9th is going to kind of move back to here. And again, that's a block of the 1st. Again, if that had been a 9th, he'd have been in a fight or flight situation, but the 9th is just going to get the headquarters out and hope to bring some guys back into play. Next is the Belgians. The Belgians are up. Had the BEF not been here, for example, they could have withdrawn from Antwerp and doubled up in Ghent. But they're doing a nice job of backstopping. They'll just sit tight for now in this particular scenario, the way things have played out. So, Belgians are good to go. The BEF. Now, do we have a chance to hit the Germans at all? Decisions. Do I have the Dynamo card? I don't have a Dynamo card. I don't know if I want to pull them out or not, but I tell you, this is nice. If we could pop somebody here. Probably don't want to hit Brussels in a city because we know there's some strong blocks in there from when they took it. But we do have a good defensive spot too. Not sure. I think we will probably just sit tight. I'm a little leery about... I tell you what, I'm going to pull back out of Ghent and gamble that we'll get an activation chance. I mean, B is going to go again, but we can hold enough that maybe we can get some help in there later. I just like having the BEF doubled up on that river line for now. Given the way things are going, we're still not sure where the Germans are headed. So we got a few chits left. The 2nd gets into play. And the 2nd, now here's a couple interesting blocks. We know they're each 2 steps because we saw that in the last battle. Let's, certain parts of the French army, in some cases, have to be viewed as consumable, as harsh as that might sound. We're going to attack. The 2nd's going to attack in here. We're going to hit there and there. We're going to bring the headquarters back to here, and we're going to pull these fellas back to here. Now, if wiping out the 2nd was an objective for the Germans, we may be helping them here. But we don't know if it is, but we do see a chance to inflict potentially some losses here. So, attacker will declare first. Are we playing a battle card? In this case, we're not. Are the Germans playing one? Well, we got to protect those tank blocks. So tell you what, we're going to give up a 555 as our battle card. Now you might be saying, like, this is crazy for the 2nd to attack like this, but they just made the Germans use a valuable resource to protect that tank blocks. Because remember, when those German tank blocks are knocked out, they do not come back. So 3 at 5 on the airstrike for the Germans. A 4, a 6, and a 4. 2 hits. Okay, we are in clear terrain, so the German tank block will roll first. 2 at 6. Oh, and they got 2 2s. Now again, this is not working well for the French, but I have seen attacks like this where they've inflicted a couple losses, knocked some German blocks down to 1 step. Something that can keep a German player awake at night is the idea of a tank block with only 1 step out on the flank somewhere, because that's critical. So we have defending infantry, 2 at 3, 98, and the Second Army rolls 2 at 1. They got nothing. They're obviously not going to buy a second round, but they've now engaged. And what they've done here, basically, they sacrificed a bunch of steps, but they forced the Germans to burn a resource. They also put these guys in a fight-or-flight situation, because these 2 German blocks cannot engage any of these fellas the next turn. They can disengage from this, or they can stay and fight it, but they can't move forward. It slows the German advance. It's a spoiling attack, a delaying attack, if you will. That's what the second achieved. Let's see what's left. The Dutch, they're down to 1 block. He could never enter Belgium, of course, and he could move through the marsh and start to come around, but he could go to Rotterdam. Let's be daring. Let's do that. Let's move up there. And then last but not least will, of course, be Army Group B. And their headquarters is here, so let's see what we can accomplish here. Let us hit Ghent, and we're going to move through our friends here at A into Ghent with these 2 blocks. We're going to take up a position, if we can, opposite the river. We're a little blocked by Antwerp, so we're going to go 2 here, and we will go 2 here. We're going to hit Antwerp this way. We're going to pass through Rotterdam, capturing it, and fight these fellows in the marsh to make the Dutch surrender, and we'll keep the headquarters there. So let's fight this battle. And marsh, I'm just going to pull up our train effects chart here on the rule book as a refresher for you, because marsh doesn't come into play a lot, but it can occasionally. All blocks roll 1 fewer die, but not less than 1 for block. And so what's going to happen here? Defender in each class is it's an infantry, mech, and armor sequence, if you will, and the Germans do have a mech in here. So they're going to roll, and again, that may not be the best use of the German mech, probably isn't, but for the example we're playing through, we'll do that. So 1 at 2 for the Dutch, and he rolls a 5. And Germans normally get 6 at 3, 3 on each one, but they each lose a dice because of the marsh, so it's 4 at 3 for the Germans, and there's a 3 and a 6, and a 2 and a 3. And that's going to be the end of the Dutch, because their city was captured, and all their forces are out. So the Dutch are out of play, and sometimes I'll take these and, as the formation's out, give them to the Germans as a mnemonic, just on the off chance that elimination of a country was their objective. Here we are at Antwerp, a city, overland, 2 at 3 for the Belgians. Ooh, a 1 and a 2. And now we have an infantry block down to 1 step. 3 at 3 for the Germans. A 6 and a 3 and a 7. So the Belgians hold, and they are really chewing up Army Group B here. And then Ghent is an interesting situation. We have 2 at 3 there for the Belgians, a 6 and a 10. The Germans 3 at 4, a 3, a 6, and a 6, and 3 at 3, a 4, a 7, and a 5. So again, the Belgians hold. A lot of places the Belgians have held with 1 step, and that has slowed the German advance. So that is B's activation, and there's nothing left in the cup, and that is the end of turn 2. So what happens now is we will first say to either side, do you want your free Supreme Headquarters step? And the German will say, yeah, I'll take it now, because I'm only at 2 anyway. I'll go to 3. I don't have any blocks to bring back in, but I'll take it now. French are at 4. They're not going to take it right now. So we then say, are there any reinforcement cards you want to play? This is kind of done simultaneously. The Germans are thinking, man, I'd like to put an armor step back on that guy, but he's in battle, because you can't put reinforcement steps on blocks that are still in battle. But I don't want to give up that engineer, though. See, I'd like to put infantry back on, but I don't want to give up my cards. I like the engineer. I like that airstrike, 3 at 5. I'm not going to play one. The French, I could put 2 infantry steps here, or 2 mech or armor for the French. With where things are, I don't. Anybody who's not engaged does not need steps right now. I'm not going to play one. Now, the reason we do reinforcements first and then bring the blocks back on is because we don't want to bring blocks in and then play a card to add them even more. That's not how we do it. So reinforcements are first, and then reserves, which is the process we're going to demonstrate here of bringing blocks back into play. So the French have 4 supreme points. They got 3 blocks out of play. I could spend all 4 and put him down to 0. I could play a 1, a 1, and a 2. I could do a 2 and a 2 and bring 2 of them in. In this case, I'm going to spend 2 points and bring 2 of them in. I'm going to bring the mech in at a step, and I'm going to bring the infantry in at 1 step. I'm just trying to get bodies here. Now, when blocks come back into play, they have to come in within command range of their headquarters. Remember, we ran the 9th back here. Within command range, So they could come in, one of them could come in here. You can't exceed the stacking limit, of course. One could come here, anywhere within command range. So I could go here, 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 etc. Not in battle, and no further forward advanced than the headquarters. So for the Allies, you couldn't be this way more. For the German, like, there's the headquarters, I couldn't put a German block ahead of this line where the headquarters is located. So in command, not in battle, not more forward advanced. So let's put one here with the HQ. Let's put the mech with the HQ, and let's put the other fella, let's put him down here as a little Paris defense if need be. So that's the process of doing reserves. Again, we've already played the reinforcement. I can't now add steps on. And remember, the Supreme headquarters does never add steps to blocks that are already in play. It's only used in this function, one of many functions it has, to bring blocks back into play. Now, the Germans already took their free step. The French, again, in this sequence, they could have taken it early. They didn't because they were at 4. They can now take the free step at the end of the sequence. And there they go. So we get ready for turn 3. We remove an A and a B command chip from play. We put the others back into play, except, of course, for the Dutch, because they're now eliminated from play. We put them back in. We add the reserve army for turn 3. The reserve army will now become active for the French. And we deal out the cards as specified here. And again, what to do with the chits is here on the turn chart. So the Allies get 1 card, and the Germans get 3 cards. And that diminishes as you go through. By turn 6, both sides get 1 card as resources are exhausted, so on and so forth. What they get, they got to press the attack, command confusion, airstrike, panzer, that's not bad. And they got a dynamo card. 7 to 9 steps evacuated, -1 victory point. 10 to 12 steps, -2 victory points. Interesting. One of the functions you can do with the Supreme Headquarters is to spend a point during the start of a turn, not on turn 1, but on the start of a turn, to buy a card. So the Allies are going to do that. They're going to buy another card. See what they got. Well, it's not bad. Airstrike, some good reinforcements. And then we'd be ready for turn 3. We'd start drawing the chits, follow through. The Germans, again, trying to work their way through to get these objectives. Interesting battle right now. Interesting game. We don't know what's going to happen here. They're making some progress this way, but they've only knocked out, in effect, 1 French block so far. Before I finish up, just want to go over a couple things for you here. Again, victory determination. I'm just going to move these aside for a moment. City ownership for victory at the end of a game. Let's suppose the Germans had to take this place. They attacked it. Maybe they got it down to 1 step left on a French block, and there's a 2 or whatever. There's a German block in there. Who owns it? The French do. The last side to solely occupy do. Vice versa. Maybe the Germans held it going into the last turn, and the French came in and it was engaged down to their last step even. Who owns it? The Germans do. For victory conditions, victory considerations. So that's how that's factored. It's the last side to solely occupy. They are the owner of the hex, and if that's the case at the end of the game, if it's contested, it counts for victory. Something else to remember, formation headquarters, if they get eliminated during play during turns 1 through 4, they come back into play. They're placed on the turn track at a strength of 2. Let's suppose, where's the second? Here's the second. Okay, suppose he got knocked out in battle somehow during the first 4 turns. Let's turn 3 maybe. He'd be placed on turn 4, come back in at 2 steps during this very phase we just did, start of the turn. He would have to attach, just like these fellows who came in as reserves, had to attach to the headquarters. It's kind of the same thing in reverse. The headquarters has to attach to units of the formation, in command, not in battle, and the headquarters cannot be further advanced, this way for the Allies, that way for the Germans, further advanced than blocks of the formation. Well, Doug, what happens if all the blocks of the formation are also out? Well, then the formation's been wiped out. There's nobody for him to command to attach to. He then goes into the dead pile as well. None of them come back in. So that's how that works, and I encourage you to double check that section of your rules. Keep in mind as well that on turn 5, any formation headquarters, any FHQ it talks about here, that is removed from play for combat does not come back on turn 6. Does not come back, they're out. And that's to prevent some gamey things of just throwing a bunch of blocks on at the end for the Allies to thwart German victory conditions. Lastly, keep in mind there were no reserves or reinforcement or reserve phase at the end of turn 6. Once the last chit is drawn, everything stops. There's no bringing blocks back on, adding reinforcement steps. You just kind of see where things stood at that time, and that's how you determine victory. I hope this has been helpful for you to kind of see the flow of the game, how the mechanics work, the processes. Maybe I picked up a few tips along the way, and I hope it increases your enjoyment of Dunkirk, France 1940. Thanks very much for watching.